Right, episode 7, here we are. And today I'm joined by Mary, Dolores, Geraldine, many more names. Tess Forbes Nolan. For those of you who don't know, yes, mostly you will know her as Jared or Gerald or Geraldine Nolan or Geraldine Forbes, but today I'm joined by my ma, and the reason why I have my ma on today is, but one, because I had my dad on, and it'd be rude not to get you on as well, wouldn't I? I wouldn't hear the end of that.
No, you wouldn't, yeah.
So, no, truth be told, my ma is a very strong, inspiring woman. She has a great story to tell, and there's a lot of people out there who I think can learn from your story and maybe find courage and inspiration in your story and what you've been through, and it's something that, to be honest, I was nervous about doing for so long, and this is why I haven't had you on earlier, is because I was thinking about if I'd be ready for it, to be honest. And look, before we get going into the deep end of the stuff, but we'll start off with the lighter stuff of where you're from and where you grew up and when you were born, or if you don't want to give away your age.
No problem about that. My mum and dad were married in 1953.
Where?
In Dublin.
Whereabouts?
CK.
City Centre, right.
Mum was from CK, Dad was from Creighton Street. And in 1957, 4 years later, I was born. I believe my dad had the hospital tormented. He was sitting on the steps of Hollis Street because my mum was in labour for so long, and he was tormenting them. Let me in. Back then, the men weren't allowed in the hospitals. So eventually, I arrived, and they were all calling him the famous Mr. Forbes. He was thrilled to have his firstborn, which was me. And then we lived in 27 Townsend Street in a tenement house. My mum, my dad, obviously, and myself and my sister Anne. And it was a big house. There was a lot of families living in it, but we were all like one big family living in the house. Great neighbours, the best of neighbours anyone could ever have. And there was one particular family that lived in it, and it was Mrs. Young. And she had her own family there. She had Paddy, Tommy, Breed and May and Josephine. And myself and Josephine, well, we're not just friends, we're sisters, because I was classed as a member of the family. But she brought me everywhere, Mrs. Young. We used to go up to a cinema up in Grafton Street. She was mad into cartoons, and there used to be a lot of animated things on then, like Bugs Bunny, wherever it was, but she loved them. So we used to go up to the cinema up in Grafton Street. But Anne was a lot young, well, she's only 15 months younger than me. But when we'd be going down the stairs, she used to say to me, sneak, don't let her hear us. So we used to have to sneak by my ma's door to go up to Grafton Street. And Josephine used to say, you bring her everywhere, you leave me behind. But she didn't, don't mind her. She was always moaning. She was jealous of me. She killed me for saying that.
Right,
but then the house was crawling with rats.
Where, in
Townsend Street, yeah. My ma had a beautiful room. Mrs. Young had a beautiful... Everyone
Don't worry about the camera, you're talking to me.
All right. I don't know where I should look. Fucking nervous. Everyone had lovely rooms in the house, and you had to distract me now. What was saying?
You asked for a vodka an hour before this.
Yeah,
no, you're saying there's rats in the house.
Oh yeah, it was crawling with rats. And my ma got 2 cats.
Right. Is this where the fear from rats comes from then?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Right, go on.
it was crawling in rats. And we had 2 cats, and one was called Christmas, and the other had no name.
Right.
So we were sitting at the table one day having our dinner, and the cat used to bring, and if she caught a rat, she'd bring her up.
You took a reward.
Yeah, and so she was scratching on the door. My ma let her in, but when she came in, the thing was still alive. So my ma
Jesus.
tossed the table over, and it was a heavy table, and we were all standing on the chairs screaming over the rat. But the place, she was always up in Dublin City Council complaining over the rats.
Yeah. So
further down the line, then we were offered a house out in Kimmage.
What age were you?
We were about 8. I was about 8 when we left the
I
tenement
was
house.
7.
Anne would have been 7.
So you went up to Kimmage then. Was it?
No, Kimmage. Yeah. And my ma, she just couldn't settle out there. We were only about 7 months out there.
Right.
And even though there was we were brought still into city, our Townsend Street School every day. And there was a bus strike on. We used to come in on the army lorries to the school, But she didn't even unpack all her stuff. She just didn't settle. So then we got a place in Irishtown, Stella Gardens.
Right.
Little house like what I'm living in now today. And we were only...
The houses across from the flats there?
Yeah, right facing the grotto.
Is that where Andy used to live?
Yeah, just we were before we came up to Andy's house. And then we were only about 3 years living there. And my dad came in one day and he says, right, we're moving. And we were all looking, what? So anyway, we moved up to 32 Al Pierce house.
The back flats? And that's
the
where...
small flats,
right, I get you. And so you went back to basically where you were from?
Because my ma just wanted to be up near her.
So that's a few moves from the age of 8 to what?
I was still in national school when we went up to Pierce house. So we were only about 10. No, wait, no. I was 3 years in Ringsend. Yeah, about 10, 11.
Going back to Pierce house?
Yeah.
So what was it like then growing up around Pierce Street and Pierce house?
Brilliant.
Just making friends. Like, what were friends there that you had left and went back to?
Yeah, well, I always palled with a girl called Marie Lane.
Right, yeah.
Even in school, I was with Marie Lane. And she lived in Pierce house with a nanny.
Right.
Well, they called her the Nana Lane. And she lived in one end Pierce house. What a woman. They had one bedroom, and my God, people complaining today on how they live. This woman was unbelievable.
Yeah.
She had so many grandchildren living with her, daughter-in-laws, our own sons. They were just a fantastic family to be around. And everyone used to sit outside the door in the summer. And Dick Lane used to sing that song, Sweet 16.
Yeah.
They loved
the Furies.
Yeah, they were a brilliant
song,
family.
Yeah.
And she cooked for them all. Every one of them she cooked for.
Gang of them,
Gang of them.
There was a lot of that, wasn't there, back then? Bigger families.
Yeah, definitely. She and my own ma pals with her own sister, Josie.
So you basically grew up then in Pierce house, more or less, and then my dad was in Markovich.
Yeah.
And then it's funny enough that you have a house now together.
On Townsend. Well, I'm back on Townsend.
It's in between the two flats.
Yeah.
So it's like bang in the middle. So that's where I grew up, obviously. But how did my dad come into the picture? Because he told a different story.
Yeah, well, he didn't. I don't know where he came up with that story.
Go on, give us
we all palled together in Pierce Street. There was a shop, you know where the Pig and Heifer is?
Yeah.
That was called Milk the Bulls. But there's a Barbers there. I don't know the name of the Barbers.
King's Head.
Yeah, there was a horse truck outside that.
Right.
And we all used to meet there. There was me, Marie Lane, Angela Martin, Alice Boylan, Lizzie O'Brien. There was like a load of us, and your dad and his mates, Nico, David Sheridan, Noel Skelly. There was a load, Georgie Gannon, my pal Georgie Gannon. And there was a shop called Neenan's. Yeah. And we all used to hang around there and play the slots in the shop.
Right.
And then your dad and we start going on our walks, as they called them. And
he obviously asked you.
Yeah, but
and
then
what was the story? Who was the fella he mentioned that he said wanted to ask?
No, it's Skelly.
No, it's Skelly.
Yeah,
right.
which
there's no such thing.
No,
just made that up.
Yeah,
he's a habit of doing that.
The bit about him seeing me on the street with my ma and Marie Lane was right, but that bit about Noel Skelly, I don't know where he got it from.
Right,
and so he was full of himself.
With that?
Yeah, full of himself he was.
He had the perm back then, did he?
Oh no, he didn't get that until later on. No.
Oh, right.
So then we we start going to the television club and the Crystal and all.
Right.
But then he started to smell himself. He thought he was great.
Right.
So then he was on off.
So he's chasing other ones.
Chasing.
Oh.
He thought he was Richard Gere.
No, master. I probably thought it was Tom Jones, did he?
Yeah.
Richard Gere.
He thought he was. Right, right, full of himself. And he's still coming into the television.
That's the story he always tells about. It's obviously not true. His dad died when he was bleeding 7, but he said when he was 13 or 14, his dad brought him to Ringsend, Iron Bridge or Ringsend Bridge. He says,
"See, made that up.
That's Ringsend. Go on down there and don't come back till you're a man." Yeah. He said, "I'll come back 3 days later, bollocks."
He makes them up as he goes along. He thinks it's hilarious. But no. So then, as time went on, then I got pain in my face with him.
You gave him an ultimatum?
No, I just said, here, he thinks he's whatever, and I gave him the heave-ho. So I stopped going. I used to go in on his skate on the flats.
Yeah.
I was always up with Mrs. Young's when she got flat in Markovich.
Right.
And so I started going down Pierce Street way and coming in Pierce Street way.
Okay.
And this particular night I was going down Pierce Street and I seen him at the bus stop with a girl.
Great, what?
She was the girl got on the bus. So I just kept on walking, and with that there's someone behind me, how are you? And I went, yeah. He said, that was a manager's wife. He said, I was just leaving her onto the bus. And I went, would you ever fuck off?
So you should have pulled the wool off your eyes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So he was a dark horse.
Right, and then obviously then when did you finally put that all behind you? You decided to get. You got married young. What age were you? 20?
I was 20 getting married.
He was 21.
He was 21, yeah.
Which was probably normal back then. But
And before we got married, 6 weeks before we got married, we had nowhere to live.
Right.
We were looking at places up in Ballsbridge and all, and I was kind of going, oh, I couldn't. It was like me going down to the country. I'm too much of a homeboard.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tomo's sister Marion had a friend called Ailish, and she knew the man who was selling the house, Sean Kenny.
Right.
And he said to Ailish, he'd love someone only starting off in life to be able to buy the house.
That's nice, yeah.
So anyway, we got wind of the word of it, and we went and had a look at the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say it was in bits, but when I walked into it, I just got this feeling. I loved it, I did.
Right.
And the deposit on the house back then was £1,000.
Which was a lot of money then.
Yeah.
What year was this?
1978.
Yeah.
So fortunately, we had a bit of savings, and we had £1,000. So we were delighted then with that. So then we had to meet up with the auctioneer again, and he said, "I've good news, not bad news for you." He said the deposit on the house is £1,500. And I looked at Tom and he looked at me, and he says, "We're going to maybe ask your dad to cut back the list on the wedding, and because my dad was paying for the wedding, and let him give us." And I said, "No, I want me big wedding and wherever." So he went that way and I went that way.
Just killed these, yeah.
So then I was sitting at home and my dad says to me, "But yeah, you have a claim coming."
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not allowed to get that till I'm 21. And he said, "No," he says, "we'll go to the courts and we'll tell the judge what you need the money for, and he'll grant it." So off we went to court. I was shaking because there was everyone handcuffed to everyone, and I made the balls for when I got into the dock to put my hand on the Bible and all that. But to cut a long story short, and anyway, the judge asked what was the money wanted for, and I said we were buying a house and we needed the 500 towards the deposit, and he granted it, and that's how we got the house today.
5 kids and bleeding a gang of bleeding grandkids later, and
8
still
grandkids,
standing.
blessed with them all. Yeah.
And still there, yeah. So I mean, in a sense, it's for me looking in at Jews now. Look, I mean, that's something that I aspire to in life is to build a family and to build a home. And I think the importance of having both parents at the home. I know it's not always achievable for some people or attainable, but for me, it's a big thing. And sort of building family up around me. I know a lot of people don't want to have kids and stuff like that, but when I see us all now meeting in the home, the family home, and sitting with you and seeing the grandkids, it's something that if I sacrifice the hours now of the shitey nappies and the fucking sleepless nights, that's the reward then down the line, you know. And for me, there's nothing greater than that, I suppose. And like for you now, what is that feeling like now that you have that and that you're here? And
it's great. Well, it's finally got rid of them all out of the house. Just me and Tom on our own now. Well, it's not very. I didn't think I'd hear today. I'd say I have 2 spare rooms. Doesn't mean anyone's coming back. No spare rooms. But no, having the grandkids coming in, the younger ones, Agas, Millie, Tommy, your boy, he's out on his own, and Bobby.
Yeah, Bobby's the newest.
But the eldest is Chloe. She was our pride and joy when she was born. She still is our pride and joy. And then we have Ben and Callum and Alex and Sam.
But
so
do you ever like I said when we're all there, is there ever like a pinch yourself moment where it's like, did you ever be taken back by it and look around and take in your surroundings, or is there ever like a how did they get here?
Yeah.
Did you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you ever have any of them type of fucking?
Yeah. When I love when we're all together, and I know everything's not always good all the time, but I love it. I just love it. I love everybody being in the house and getting up and saying, "Do you want something to eat?" and whatever.
Yeah. And do you think? Like marriages are hard, relationships in general are hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you think you learned to stick by me dad and him to stick by you through thick and thin? Do you think you've learned that from your own mum and dad? Do you think it was a generational thing or what?
Yeah, we did. We had some ups and downs, a lot of ups and downs, because we were quite young getting married. We were very young getting married. But then I suppose that was a trend back then. You got married and you had a family. But obviously something kept us together, and obviously it was love, even though there was times we could have killed each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, my own mad and dad, my dad was, and my ma, they had serious problems themselves. My father drank.
Yeah.
And my ma, Lord of mercy on her as well, also she had mental health issues.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
It was hard looking at her because she went through the mill. She hid a lot from us for years and we didn't know what about it. And then she couldn't hold it back any longer. She started trying to...
I mean, Annie was, she was diagnosed clinically with bipolar, was she?
Yeah, yeah. She done a main time she tried to commit suicide and thankfully she didn't succeed. But once she nearly did. And we were all sent for, she was in intensive care up in the hospital. And she was always in Vergemount for years and years, and then she was in Vergemount, and one day she was in there for a long time, and my dad used to come to me every day for dinner from the docks, and she came home out of there, and I was pregnant on Sinead at the time, and your dad said to me, come on, we go into town and we get stuff for the baby's room, because your dad and your ma's home now and everything be okay and whatever. So we're walking up, we got as far as Markovich, and I could hear someone whistling. I kept on, and when I turned around, it was my dad, and he was running after us, and he just said, Gerald, I'm sorry. He said, she's after doing it again. She'll have to take another overdose. But when we got to the flat, it's funny when you look back the way my dad was going on. He said, she was over, she didn't even know where she was. She was after taking that many tablets, and here's my dad. Ask her, why'd she take all my tablets? If I have a flipping heart attack, there's nothing there for me. Why'd she take all my tablets?
Sounds like something young folk
well, she didn't realise what she was after doing, but that was the very first time that we put her into St. Brendan's.
Brendan's, and what was that? What was Brendan's?
It was a mental.
Is it still here today?
I think Brendan's is gone. I don't think it's there.
Right,
Could be moved somewhere else.
That was a story you were actually telling me before.
It was. It wasn't a nice place.
Wasn't?
No. It was horrible, it was.
And was it harder for her in there? Do you feel like it helped her at all, or do you think it was something that she...
Well,
she back then, the information and the technology and around mental health it's still fucking a lot of unknown today, still a lot of grey areas today, but back then, they were using people nearly as fucking human experiments.
Yeah,
you know?
she did get a lot of... the electric shock treatment done.
Yeah,
she got that done quite a lot.
Fucking mental.
Yeah.
And you were telling me a story about sometimes she'd go up and she'd have a different voice on, she'd be talking posh or something.
Yeah, she'd be... Sometimes I went up, and this particular day I went up, Lord of mercy, Thomas' brother John, he brought me up one day, and she was actually then at this stage, she was at put into a lock-up place, and you had to knock on the door to go in, so when the nurse opened the door, I went in, I said to John, I can see me man anyway. And with that, this woman walked towards me with roaring red lipstick on her, blue eyeshadow, skin tight, red trousers.
You don't mean to laugh, but
skin top bed onto her. And she went, hi Geraldine, sit down there. And I go, John, what's going on here? He said, sit down. So I'm sitting down. And my ma's talking to me, and all of a sudden this woman comes over, got to help her, and she was shaking, and she goes, Jenny, can I have a smoke? And she went to me, excuse me, Geraldine, fuck off you, or I'll put you into a rocket. You wait, my daughter's gone.
Put you in a what?
Put you into a fucking rocket. She said. And I said to John Owen, I have to go, I have to see what he says. Don't leave me on my own with her. So I went in, and they said they were trying to get our medication balanced right.
Really?
But she used to walk around, my ma.
How did my granddad cope while she was in there? Like, like you said, he was an alcoholic. Was he drinking heavier when she was in, or when?
Well, my dad was, when we were younger, my dad would drink, but as the years went on, then we noticed he was getting heavier on the drink.
Yeah.
There was times when she'd be in hospital, he would be on the dry, and he'd walk out to the hospital if there was bus strikes on.
Yeah.
He'd walk out to the hospital all the time and walk back. But at one particular time he was drinking, and he was up with her, and she said to him, I'm going to a disco tonight, Willie. And he said, where? And she said, up here. She says, there's a man up here and he fancies me. So my dad was playing on his mind, so he had a friend called Paul Gannon, and he said to Paul, we're going up on a mission tonight up to that Brendan. She said there's a fella up there who fancies her. So off they went, they found where the disco was, and my dad put Paul on his shoulders, and Paul looking in the window. I can see her, Willie, yeah, she's dancing. I don't know whether she's with anyone or not. He was actually with anyone.
They should have played some of them two in if they had got them outside, for fuck's sake.
They would have. But there's things that we can look back on and we can laugh on, yeah. There's sad times that we can... sad memories
It's
well.
mad because, I mean, my nanny died in the February of 93.
93,
and
that's
I was
right.
born in the October. And then my granddad, yeah, that died when I was, what, 1?
You were, what, about
13, 14
yeah,
months or so. And like, so I don't really remember them, but I have, like, it's almost like it's generational, that the things have been passed down. Like, I don't know if there's studies to show if trauma can be generational and passed down. I think there is, actually. But when you mention alcoholism and addiction and then mental health things, these are two things that I suffer with in my life, and I've openly spoke about and I've talked about a lot. But when you talk about things with my granddad, it always resonates with me. And even with my nanny then, when you talk about it now, obviously I've been thankful enough to never be signed in anywhere or anywhere like that, but it's been something I've been going through for years. But there's one of the things that helps me get through and helps me cope is journaling. And I remember whenever you dish out some of his old books, he always journaled and he kept things, and these are things that then you show me, and I've copied a few of them into a different copy and took pictures of them and saved them, and these are sentimental things that, like, I don't know, it's just something about them that I feel like there's a part of them in me, but I think that's all down to do with the story of when I was a baby and I was sick, if you want to tell that story. But I always feel like something that when I'm reading the words on the page, they're jumping out at me. It's almost like I feel like I've wrote them.
Yeah.
Do you know that way?
But you are like him in a lot of ways in regards music. Like, words meant a lot to him in songs.
Lyrics, yeah.
And you would be the same and I would be the same. Like, sometimes I say to your dad in the car, words are lovely in that song. What? I'd say, listen to the words of it. Yeah, fucking listen to the words. Like, I do be listening to the words and it means something to me, but he'd just be making a laugh at me. But yeah, in that regards, yeah, you would.
Yeah, and it's a story then of when I was, that's what I wanted to tell. It's a bit of a story of when he did pass away.
Oh yeah. On the 18th of January 95, you weren't well, and I took you into the bed with me that night, and I said to your dad, he's not well again, because when you were younger, you suffered a lot with chest infections, and I thought it was another chest infection coming on. So I got up and I said to your dad, I'm going to ring the doctor the first thing. I said, he's not well at all. So your dad, he only started in a new job, and I rang my dad to bring it over about the 7-Up. And he said, right, Ger, I'll bring her over. But when he came over, I had you lying on the couch, but I just had a sheet over you because you were roasting. And when my dad walked in, he said, Jay's not well at all. I said, no, I'm waiting on Dr. Callahan to come out. So anyway, my dad said, I'm just going to run around to the Bukies and I'll be straight back. So I said, right. So with that, Dr. Callahan came, and when he walked in, he pulled the sheet off you, and I went, oh Jesus, I'm awful sorry for calling you. I said, he's the measles. But he didn't say that to me. He said, Jayden, tell you what, he says, I'll drive you up to the hospital. And I said, no. I said, what would you be driving me up to the hospital for? He said, no, I'd rather have him checked out. I'll bring you up. I said, no. I said, I'll ring my brother-in-law, Paul Nolan. I said, he'll bring me up. So I rang Paul anyway, and with that, my dad came back, and Dr. Callahan wouldn't leave until he see me going in the car with you. But on the way up, you start getting sick. Still wasn't thinking anything. So I got there and I said to my dad, oh jeez, we're going to be here for hours. The place was packed. So I said, you hold him, and I hand the letter in at the desk. So I had no sooner put my arse back on the chair, and it was Thomas Nolan. So my dad sat outside and I brought you in. So they started examining you, and one doctor was walking up and down and they were looking at each other, and I said, what are they looking at? There's something going on here. So with that then, this lady doctor came in a suit and a stethoscope around her neck, and she says, she looked at them and they went like that to her, they nodded at her. And she says, can I take you to a room? I says, no, is there anyone with you? And I said, my father's sitting outside. So she brought me into a room and they said, your baby has meningococcal septicemia and he's very sick. And she said, if you're any family, you need to get him to come up. And I'm going, we need to get him to come up for what? She said, your baby's dying. So I'm in an awful state. My dad didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to reach your dad because he was only just starting in the new job, so I hadn't got a clue where. So how my dad found him, I don't know. So with that, your dad arrived up and he pushed the door in and I said, they said he's dying. And he said, no, he's not, don't be. And the doctor grabbed your dad and he said, Mr. Nolan, your baby is dying. So you were put up into intensive care and we were all there, and me and your dad said it obviously in the room with you. They put a bed in for us. And that was on a Wednesday. On a Thursday, your granddad was in Mass. He was down at a funeral. And Father Mulligan was walking out and he said to me, all right, will you? And he says, no, I'm not. He said, I'm praying to God to take me and to leave Jerry with Thomas. So he went to the funeral, and the next day, you seemed to make a immaculate recovery because they took you out of the intensive care and put you on a ward. So we got word to my dad that you were out of the intensive care, and he was up seeing his brother Joe. Joe was sick at home. He was very bad with cancer. And he came up to the hospital that evening. It was freezing out, and Paul and Jackie was up there with us, and your dad. And every time you used to see our granddad when you were a baby, you used to go like that. So you see my dad coming and you went, and he put his hands in his pocket and he took 5 packets of white chocolate buttons out. And I said, oh, Dad, I can't give him them. He says, I'm only going to give him 1 or 2. He says, no one needs to know. So he gave you a couple of chocolate buttons. And I went upstairs to Paul and Jackie in the parents' room and left your dad and Tomo, your dad and me dad with you. So then Tomo come up and he says, you're bleeding out. He's down there singing all them songs to him, walking up and down the corridor with him in his arms. And Thomas is doing all these little actions. We were saying, we can't believe how he's after coming on. So then my dad said to me, Jerry, you're going home tonight. You're getting a night's sleep. Thomas staying the night. You come up in the morning and let him go home. So I went home, Paul, Jackie, my dad went home. Got to my house and I said, Dad, don't go out the car, it's freezing. Paul will drop you in the flats. No, I'm going in with you for a cup of tea. So thanked Paul and Jackie for bringing us home, and he came in. Just sitting there and we were talking, and he said, oh, great news, Jerry, isn't it? Look at him, he looks really, really well, and he's can't believe, because your feet now are turning black and everything. And so then he was going. I says, no, Dad, tomorrow, I said, go down and do a little bit of work in Lansdowne. No, I'm going to the hospital. I said, you don't need to come up to the hospital. So when he was going, and it's the word I never really heard him say, I knew he loved me, but he turned back and he went, Jerry, and I went, what? He said, I love you. And I said, yeah, I love you too. So I went in and I grabbed the phone and I rang on and I said, will you watch me dad tomorrow? She says, why, what's wrong? I said, I have a funny feeling he's going to break out on the beer. She said, yeah, fuck you and me dad. She said, you're always worrying about the beer. And so after the next morning I went to the hospital. Your dad went home. I think Sinead was with me up in the hospital. And then they went home and I was on my own with you, and your dad came back up. And your dad said, oh, come on, we bring him in for a good wash. So we brought you into the bathroom and we were playing with you. And we were delighted that you couldn't get over it. Jeez, the way you were so sick, and then all of a sudden you're perfect. So with that, the door opened and the nurse had a phone call, which was nothing unusual because a lot of family members, everyone was ringing to see how you were. So anyway, I'm coming out and I was hooshing you up and down, and when I walked out, there was she was like a sister or a matron and a nurse and your dad, and the 3 of them were standing looking at me, and I'm going, your dad said, hand the baby to the nurse, and I said, no. Because I thought there was something wrong with you. I thought there was something after coming back and test or something. And they said, the nurse just took you and you were screaming. And I said, what's going on? And Thomas says, I don't know how to say this to you, but come out with it. He says, your dad's had been found dead. So I'm not a religious person. Thomas was a religious person, but I do.
Still today, even listening to it, though I've heard it so many times, I still get goosebumps about it. It still resonates with me. It's like, it just makes me very grateful and thankful. And like you said, I'm not very religious, you know me. I have my beliefs, I have my value structures in life I live by, and I believe you do good for others, you do good for yourself, and that's the way I try to live my life. But when you hear that, it's hard not to think some sort of spirit. There is some sort of spiritual or a higher level than us, and you know, whatever it is, consciousness or spirit or soul or whatever. But yeah, it's a story that sticks with me. And what you said there about you never really said it, but you knew he loved you. I think even now, our family, your kids, is still struggle.
Yeah, we do.
There's me, there's Glenn, Louise, Sinead and Carolyn. It's very seldom, you know, that we'll show some sort of affection or love towards each other, and it's something that even as the youngest, I feel like I've been trying to, I don't know what way to say it, and kind of lead, instead of trying to wait for someone else to do it, try to lead and take control of the situation and like tell people that I love them more, tell them we should be more affectionate. And especially since having Tommy, I don't want that to be passed on to him, or especially with me tendencies to fall into ruts and depressive states and bad forms of mental health. I don't want him to learn that from me, so it's something that I need to battle with daily, you know, and something that I need to get on top of myself with daily. So it's I don't know. I think for growing up when your time, it was different. It was for a man to be a man, you weren't allowed to cry, you weren't allowed to show emotion and but for me, I think that's all bollocks, to be honest. I think you can. I heard one recently that someone said his father was two different type of men. He said one can hug you and one can hit you. He said, but both of them were men. He said, you know what I mean? It was all right to be a man that hugged his kids. It was all right to be, but if anyone done wrong on his kids, he'd be the first one now fucking swinging digs, you know. And he said for him, that's what a man was, and it's important to show care and love to your children. And so just on that point, but I think going back to when you were younger, growing up, and I guess this is something that I've been trying to put off, but when you were younger and you had your own experience with you were abused.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So if you want to...
I was around 12 years of age, probably going on 13 years of age, when I remember my father's family, a first cousin to my father's, abused me from the age of 12, 13 up to, I would have been 16 the year it stopped, up to 15. It was a horrible experience, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And it came out years later. I never knew. I always thought I was a little tramp in the back of my mind because of what happened. I always felt it was my fault and I allowed it to happen. So someone else brought it out about him, and then I realised, was I abused? So...
Sorry, man, for cutting across you, but you're 12 years of age and this man was 22 years your senior.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And it wasn't until what age were you when you realised this was abuse?
I was married with 5 kids.
So I mean, for all those years you held inside, believing that you were the cause of this. You were a tramp at 12 years of age, with a man that was 34 years of age who was abusing you and family member nonetheless, and it was in the vicinity of the local vicinity in the industry.
Yeah, he's well known. Allegedly, I'd say he had it well perfected before he got to us. I'm only going to say my story because there is other people involved and I'm not going to mention their names. But it was brought out by somebody else, and Tomo was talking to me and he said to me one night, he said, you were in that choir, he said, were you ever touched? And I said no. And I was shaking inside. And when Tomo fell asleep, I got up and I was really sick and my head was all over the place, because when Tomo used the word abused, I was questioning myself then, was I abused or no, was I this little tramp that I allowed all this to happen? And then I went to work the next morning. I had to pass the house where I was abused. And he abused me also in his workplace on many of an occasion. And I was going to work and I got very panicky and nervous and just everything came flooding back. So I went to work and the girl said to me, are you all right? And I said, I couldn't even speak. So she got the boss that was over me, and they were lovely people that I worked for. And he came down, he says to me, Geraldine, are you all right? And I said, I don't know if I was abused. Oh no, I wasn't abused, it's all my fault. I was talking shy. And he says, does Tomo know? And I said, no. I said, I can't tell him. I says, John, because he'd kill him. And he said, but it's not about Tomo, Geraldine. He said, it's about you. So he says, I have an empty apartment and I'm going to give you the keys to go around to it. And I went around, and John waited, my boss waited with me until he came. And when he came up to the apartment with me, and I told him that I was abused by this man. And he said, I had an idea where, he says, but I needed to hear you say it. And then I felt good after telling him, and I thought, oh, I'm grand, I'm great now, I'm after telling Tomo this and get on with my life. I went home, I went into town with my niece, Michelle, and a few days later, I couldn't pass the door, I couldn't come out. Everything kept on flushing, going through my head, and I never crossed the door for 3 months. I couldn't come out. And as time went on, then I decided to make a statement to the police. And I went up to the police station, and I was 5 hours in the police station giving me statement. And it wasn't easy, it was very hard. And it's very hard to make a decision to go to the police as well. But my gut feeling was telling me, if I can save someone else from this bastard, I'll do it. So I went up to the police station, and the Vanguardie took the statement, and at one stage the detective came in and he says, your family member's waiting on you outside. So when I went out, was your dad and Sinead? And I broke down. I went home, and the detective kept in touch with us quite regularly. And then it was about maybe 2 years later, 3 maybe, he rang me and he says, Geraldine, he says, the DPP were charging him in the morning. He says, but you're not allowed to tell anyone, he says, till we arrest him. So they went out and they arrested him in his home. And his interview was all no comment, no comment, no comment, no comment. And we were told that not every case makes it to the courts because the evidence is not strong enough to take it to court. So they said, don't get, even though he's charged, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll make it to the steps of the court. But we did make it to the steps of the court after a long hurdle. And
just for anyone who's listening in, man, who might be, you never know who's going through this. Like, obviously there's people around you who didn't know you were, and who did blame themselves. Do you feel like how he done things manipulated you to feel that way, or did you feel that way by your own sort of guilt?
Probably both, maybe, because he'd threaten you and say, don't tell anybody this, or this is all our secret, and if it does, no one is going to believe you. I'm a pillar of the community. People are not going to believe that I was like doing all these things. And he was a horrible bastard and an evil bastard, and he's still breathing. And so we got to court, and terrifying, very nervous. It was my turn to go in and give evidence, and one of the questions his barrister asked me, I used the word think in my statement. Yeah. It was a projector screen, and he was showing bestiality on it. And I said in my statement, I don't think it was a television. I think it was a projector, but I knew it was a projector, and I don't know why I said that.
A projector that what?
It was a projector that projected film onto a screen.
And that's what he was doing?
Yeah. But I don't know why I used the word television. But we were told that we could have a break if we got tired or whatever. So that bastard was getting treatment. So the court used to finish at 3 o'clock to facilitate his treatment. But I wasn't aware at the time, and I just said to the judge, can I have a small break? And he looked at the barrister and he said, yeah. And he said, right, we'll adjourn till Monday because it's 10 to 3 now. So I went home, and I had a brilliant counsellor. I was attending her for nearly 8 years. and I rang her and I said, oh, I'm after making balls in my statement. I don't know what I'm after saying. I know it was projected. I don't know why I said it was a television, and I got myself into a state. So she says to me, Geraldine, I'll be into the courts to you Monday morning. And she did come, and she sat with me, and she helped me through it. And when I went in, anyway, his barrister said, no, the whole weekend they'd come back with an answer. And he said, well, what was it? I said it was a projector. I shouldn't have said what I said. I said, I made a mistake in what I said. It was a projector. But we got through that first trial. And at the end of it, then the two barristers got up and stood or someone up and whatever, and his barrister got up, and I could see the judge making an angry face, and everyone was looking at each other in the courts, and the judge stopped them and he dismissed the jury, told them to go for an early lunch, and he said that he had put a seed of doubt into the jurors' minds, and he'd have to go home and study the whole case the weekend and come back with a decision Monday morning. And his decision then that morning was to a retrial.
And that went on for?
We had 4 retrials.
8 years. And
I was in counselling for 8 years, yeah.
So eventually you got what you wanted. You got your day in court where you got your jurors and you got the unanimous decision. He was plastered in the papers. He
That was from the civil case.
Yeah.
We gave it up our right. Well, you give up your rights for humanity.
Yeah.
Then anyway.
Because there was a technicality in the.
Or I wanted to expose him
in the criminal case, but you got just an exposure.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. I just.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to when I was a kid and when all this was going on and I didn't know what was going on in the house, and like you said, the detectives were in and out and they were keeping in touch, and I just remember thinking I didn't know what was going on, and I remember telling people, and I used to think I was adopted because I was the only one with red hair. And because I was for the 12-year-old I was well ahead of my years, like I hung around with older people and I was questioning it a lot, and then I think eventually you all had to tell me, and you all sent me down, and you were in the armchair, and these are all there.
Yeah, the whole lot was
just
there.
told me, and it was something that it changed me, it made me angry, and said I wasn't going to made me angry, and it turned me into a person that it shouldn't have at that age, you know. So I remember having thoughts about this man, you know, because our default thing in where we come from in our family is fucking harshaws, and the first thing you want to do is get a hold of the cunt, you know, but that was the last thing you wanted us to do, you know.
Yeah.
You didn't want any of us getting in trouble.
Because I didn't want my case not going to court either.
Yeah, and you didn't want us to fucking
No,
get in trouble
he's not
for
walked.
a man like that.
Yeah.
It was there was thoughts I had at that age that I just knew, looking back now, that no choice you'd be having, you know, and I was fantasizing about kidnapping this man, and especially when I got into 14 and 15 and I was getting a bit bigger, I was playing rugby, and I said I knew easily I could do these things to him, you know, and some disgusting, horrific things went through my mind. And I wanted to kidnap my mother, and like, was slowly, you know, and this was dark. This darkness that was inside me then was there for years. And I remember going to counselling the first time I went to counselling, and the counsellor told me straight away after like a session, she says, you became, in your mind,
My protector.
But now there was 45 kids, and I can only speak on behalf of myself, and we all got affected by it.
Oh, everyone is.
But it wasn't until I realised then that what he did to you was now passing on to, and he's winning, because we're all fucking upset over it. We're holding on to this anger and resent for this man, and it's weighing us down.
Yeah.
And I remember you were on prime time on RTE, and some of the things you said on it that stayed with me, and it's that he laughed at you or something one time, and
yeah,
that you weren't sure that you should have told me because I wasn't coping with it, and it's just the fact that you did, and this is why.
As a mother, you try to protect your kids, and because you were so young, I didn't want to say it, and Louise was sick as well, and I was trying to protect her. I didn't want, but she knew there was something going on. She was following me around the house saying, why is everyone coming into the house? What's going on? And whatever. So I was cooking the dinner, and I said it really casually. Or I said,
Try to play it off. Like.
yeah, play it off, because I didn't want her falling backwards. And Carl and Sinead, like Carl just got up and left the house. He didn't speak. But I know he went out onto the road where the bastard lived, and
yeah, well, I mean, I done it myself with my cousin John, who's not with us anymore.
yeah, sadly.
Yeah, the cousin, my older cousin John, who was my ma's only sister Anne. It was one of her sons, and our family, because my ma and Anne were the only two sisters, we both lived in the same area. We were all very close, all the cousins growing up, and we still are. Me and John were very close. John kind of took on like a big brother role for me, and he was very angry about it too, you know. And I think he said that the same fucking bastard, he slapped Dan's arse or pinched Dan's arse one
That's
time
right,
or something. And John was annoyed about it, and one night we were drinking and we ended up out there, and look, we didn't do anything stupid, thankfully, but it came close, and he, John's not with us anymore, you know, and neither is Anne, so like they were two people that maybe that story's for another day, but
She never left me side in the courts, and she was there with me all the time.
And I mean, for anyone who was listening in, who could be going through this now in silence, who could be believing that just, as you using your words, that they're just tramps, and that they're victims, and that have been manipulated to think that way, or by these fucking narcissistic animals and these predators, you know, who do prey on people, and they expose, they prey on vulnerable people and naive people,
Yeah.
and that's why it's when they're children, before you're mature enough to be in your senses enough to know what's actually happening. And it's for anyone who's listening in who may be going through something, who may be thinking about speaking up, what would your advice be?
I'd say don't be afraid, because you're not responsible for what happened. They are responsible for what happened. And go and talk to someone who you feel you can trust, whether it be a friend, a family member, police, wherever you have the strength to do. I would say go for it, because I held it for so many years without letting it out, and it nearly damaged me. Well, it did, but I don't class myself now as a victim. I class myself now as a survivor. But I do, yeah, come forward. If anyone is going through it at the moment, or have been through it, talk to someone and get the help that you need, because you're not responsible for what happened. They're responsible for what they've done to you.
I think I remember when you had the courage to speak up, man, you took that step. I think I remember you saying there was people, obviously can't say names, but there's people coming to the door who were
One person in particular stopped me, and she asked me how I was getting on and how did I find it coming out, and I said it was very hard to come out with it. But seemingly she's going through her own battle, and she was abused, and I haven't seen or heard from her since, but I'm hoping she's doing well. Yeah, but she did seek help.
And there's so much layers to the story, and some of it is not yours to tell, so
no.
we can't really get into the in-depths of it. And I mean, moving on from there, to anyone, I mean, who is going through there, and I hope that advice helps, and I hope this kind of inspires you, because I think one of the reasons, man, is why I speak up about some of the struggles I've had with depression and mental health, and how it's not easy for men to do it, is because, well, I've seen you do it, you know, and I often compare myself to my dad, but I think I have a piece about the in me, you know, and I think that part of me, he was not afraid to speak up, he was not afraid to be courageous, or be vulnerable, because let's be honest, I'm sitting here now and fucking crying on a bleeding camera, you know what I mean, and that could be used against you, you know, there's a lot of bleeding agents online these days, that can be used against you, but look, if it gets the right message out there, if it helps someone,
that's all that matters. Fuck the agents.
Yeah, exactly, you know, and I think it can have a very positive impact on someone else's life, and maybe even help fucking get a few more of these bastards behind bars, you know what I mean, because what happens is when you stay silent on them, you're almost doing them a favour.
Yeah.
Because they're free
They're
to
moving on to someone else.
You know, and if you can stop that, well then you should, you know. If you can build up the strength to speak up, well then you definitely should. And today's world though, I think it's all a bit crazy with I think the Me Too movement started in America. You know what the Me Too movement is, where your man in Hollywood was fucking abusing his position of power, and he was basically raping girls without consent to get them into films and stuff like that. And then a lot of women started speaking up, and I think a lot of them come out and they won their cases and stuff, but then there was a few that just weren't true and they were joining on for popularity, you know. And I think that's fucking very dangerous as well. I think people who accuse someone of something that didn't happen can equally ruin someone's life the opposite way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's probably just the way the world's going though, you know. Once something gets popular, everyone tries to jump on the bandwagon. But is there anything else that you'd like to get in or say or talk about before we wrap it up? I mean, there is a few minutes left, but
well, on happier notes, I did have a great time living in Pierce House. I palled with a girl called Marie Lane, as I said, but in later years when I had the kids, I used to be with a great person. You could do a film on her life story, and this is Kathleen Lane and Greta Ward. They were unbelievable. They were the most funniest people I've ever met. I can't even tell you what they got up to because I'd probably get arrested. But Kathleen had 7 kids, wonderful kids. They were our life. Our husband died when Leona was only a year old. And Greta's husband sadly passed away as well. And Greta had 3 kids, Gary, Samantha and Orla. And Kathleen's were Tony, James, Linda, Debbie, Kim. I don't know who I'm leaving out. Leona, I think I left one of you out. Mark, couldn't leave Marco Polo out. I'd never heard the end of it. So Debbie Sullivan, you got your wish. You got me on to speak.
Debbie was putting in requests to get me mar on, so it had to happen for Debbie as well.
So this is for you, Debbie Sullivan.
And what about you're not leaving anyone out? What about Susie and
everyone else? My best friend Susie.
Don't want to forget anyone. My dad had a bleeding. How many shout outs my dad had?
My
dad broke the bleeding more like God.
Susie Murray is my best friend, and I also have great friends that I made in Wexford. Susan Keogh, Fionnuala Mulhall, Sylvia O'Connell, Tina Ennis, better known as Tina Johnston, and Val. All great people, loved their company, and I had the privilege in becoming their friends, and I loved them all to bits. And I can't think of anybody else. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out.
Right, so.
Oh, and best wishes to my great friend and neighbour, Angela Ward. Get better soon. We're all thinking and praying for you.
Yeah, and so we're about to wrap up, but just to finish, like you said, to finish on a lighter note. I mean, it's important to note that that was a hard time in our lives and in your life and in the family's life, and we all went through it together. And thankfully, we all had each other to go through it together. You know, a lot of people are out there and maybe feel like they're alone. They have no one to go through it with, and I think it's important to bring it back that we no longer have that anger or hatred or darkness in us, and that we have kind of let go of it. I know bringing up emotions from the past there made me bleed and shed some tears, and so did you, but we're happy now as a family, you know.
Oh God, yeah, we are, yeah.
We have everything we have more than we ever needed. We have everything we want, and we're thankful for all that. And
yeah,
I mean, one of the things my dad said when he was on is that all you can leave behind is your memories, and I think we spend a lot of time together as a family, especially in the house, and the memories that we'll have now forever is all that matters, and it's the good memories that matter. It's not these ones that kind of bring us down or involve other people that will sort of dim our light, you know, that way. We won't let anyone dim our light from as a family. We'll all stick together, and we'll hold on to the good ones, you know. And even as families can be complicated too.
Yeah.
So on that note, yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know.
Well, before you go as well, I forgot to mention my beautiful nieces, Joanna and Michelle, I love you to bits. And my nephew Ross, love you too. And my brother-in-law, Sean, thanks for a good day the other day. And I won't forget you.
I say you forgot the next bleeding morning, the fucking, I should have seen the dance moves out and for fuck's sake.
That was water, Sean.
Yeah, right. Well, that's it then. We'll wrap it up there for this week. And there's probably so much more we could have spoke about with Anne and with John. And,
yeah, and
I mean, they were big parts of our lives and what happened to them and the stories, the good times we have with them that we have to tell as well. So
great times.
Maybe we could we'd probably get you and me dad on again together maybe sometime. And
I wouldn't get a word in with him.
No, really, actually. Hello. That's my dad saying, hold on. You try to say that and he fucking, hello. Bleeding, spitting and dribbling all over. Should have I done it with him. You interrupted me 3 fucking times. And bleeding, dripping down to his top every fucking 5 minutes on the camera. I looked back and I said, oh Jesus, I have to post that fucking out now. Alex, his nephew, my dad's grandson rang me. Thomas, my granddad's bleeding dribbling on himself in that video. So, yeah, right, then we'll wrap her up there. And thanks for coming on, man. I don't say it enough, and I probably have said it more than I ever did in the years, but I love the bits.
And I love you more.